22nd, and this is the Flyover Conservative Show!
Bill Gates owns more farmland than any other American. So why is he planning to replace our food with gene-edited produce and lab-grown meat?
Do you believe that doctors decide a baby's gender but are often wrong? If you don't, listen up, because that's what they are teaching your kids.
We all know the dollar is crashing, but what do you know about stagflation? Well, buckle up for tonight's economic update.
Dinesh D'Souza joins us tonight for an exclusive look at the 2020 election and if it was the most secure election of all time.
All of this and more on the Flyover Conservative Show.
Yes! Welcome to Flyover Conservative Podcast with David and Stacy Whited, where we break down current events and examine culture through the lens of conservative Christian values. Yay! Welcome! We are so glad that you're with us tonight. If you are new to Flyover Conservatives, our slogan is wake up, speak up, and show up. You know, we all wanted President Trump to do 80 million things. Wouldn't that have been nice if we could just sit back and he did everything for us?
Having a drink.
I know.
Watching him eat some chips.
Eat some popcorn. It would have been incredible. But we found out that what we really needed was 80 million of us doing one thing every single day to save our own country. And that's what we are finding as we are traveling across the United States at the Reawaken America events and all the other events that we are attending, that people are waking up. They're speaking up and they're showing up.
And it's needed. And one thing that we do to wake up, speak up, and show up is we have this show every night, lots of little segments, and then once a week there's a long form segment that does a full hour kind of conversation. But because of the state of our country and the fact that most tech companies are an extension of the Democratic Party, we started out on one platform. It was called YouTube. And
we went all in.
Things were going smashingly well. I was like, wow, YouTube loves us. It's going great. We had millions of listens, views, and it was going great. And then
gone.
Day de Muerto, gone. No mas. And so now we're on 57 platforms. Now it's up to 59 platforms we're on. We're on YouTube while it's live. So wherever you listen to this, if you're on Apple or your Podbean or audio versions, or you say, man, I like BitChute or Brighteon, Band.video is one of our favorite places to be that allows free speech, has some of the best content creators in our space on Band.video. It's an extension of InfoWars. So we're trying to be everywhere. So down below, there's a little link that takes you to our SocialTap. SocialTap is going to list all the places that we're available. You can also go to flyoverconservatives.com. So wherever you found this, if it was Truth Social or on Twitter or wherever, somebody forwarded this link and you found this video, thank you for checking us out. Thank you for giving us a shot. Hopefully you love this episode.
Share it with someone.
If not, check out the next one. It'll probably be better.
Yep.
Okay. And so check out flyoverconservatives.com. You can also text us at 40509, the word flyover, 40509, the word flyover. And we will be able to stay in touch with you as breaking news comes out, as things happen. Like tonight with our interview with Dinesh D'Souza and his new movie,
I'm so excited about this.
2,000 Mules. It's going to be incredible.
It is so awesome. We're going to show you this meme real fast because it's pretty interesting. So this was put out by Elon Musk. And this was back in 2008. When you look over there, he was talking about, people that were on the left. You've got the center, you've got the right, conservatives. He kind of found himself somewhere between the left and center. But then in 2012, look at how far the left was like running the other way.
Well, that's what happened. Everyone on the left was sprinting as far from the center as they could get.
Yes.
And he's still kind of where he was. And then it shows the conservative over there on the right, kind of in the same spot. Their distance is about the same. But the difference is, these conversations of defund the police and
just y'all know what the craziness is.
Burn it all down and all of this kind of stuff.
It's nutty.
The suppression of free speech. And so his thing is, I'm a free speech guy. I'm just left of center and I want to kind of enforce both sides. But the left continued on. So 2021, where's the left? The left is so far over there, they're almost off the screen, calling him a bigot. And now the center is way on the other side of me, and this term is Elon Musk, and he's over there now. He's closer to the guy on the right.
So true.
Who's saying, laugh out loud, look at the position, kind of basically laughing at him, because everyone went to, I think Bill Maher is finding himself in this place, lots of people.
That is exactly right. And the only thing that I can really think about 2008 was Barack Obama. Things have completely changed since he was
he did something that he said he was going to do, which is fundamentally change our country. And he has, and it's up to 80 million of us to fix it. It's us against Barack Obama.
That is exactly right. Now, you've probably noticed or been reading about Bill Gates buying up all of this farmland But at the same
You ain't gotta
time,
farm it.
no, at the same time, he's talking about genetically modifying our produce and creating this fake meat. So what is the deal with that? Let's check this out.
During the 1990s, Monsanto Corporation's devastating attack against farmers, their genetically modified frankenfoods, and their neurotoxic pesticides inspired people to push government into legislating certification standards for foods. But thanks to Big Pharma, Bill Gates, and pop culture media brainwashing, Monsanto still stands strong and is ready to take complete control of your food supply, with the help of the same powerful families and foundations who already control the money and the energy. Their plans to do so are comprehensively laid out in a recent report published at Corey Diggs. The indoor vertical farming industry, which is a highly innovative and efficient method, is being funded by Bill Gates and pushed by the World Economic Forum as a replacement to conventional outdoor farming. Aero Farms is the industry leader in vertical farming, and they also co-developed the first CRISPR gene-edited produce product and worked with the NIH to produce proteins for the deadly COVID vaccines. Aero Farms makes it clear that they are not conventional gardeners. They are all about synthetic food products, which is clearly the trend in this growing industry. Monsanto is creating specially tailored genetically cut seeds for these vertical farms. And the University of California is developing a plant-based mRNA vaccine that farms can grow in heads of lettuce, which happens to be the main crop of these new farms. These GMO farms already provide food at major outlets including Kroger, Walmart, and Whole Foods, and are massively expanding. And it's not only fresh produce that's getting genetically modified. The USDA and FDA have already approved genetic modifications on pigs, salmon, and cattle, and they have approved synthetic lab-grown meat. Bill Gates' Good Food Institute plans to reimagine meat production with $10 million of support from the USDA. But in order to make their big pharma food supply the new American model, they will need a major crisis. The 2020 lockdowns distressed the supply chain, which was further affected by U.S. sanctions against Russia. This has created a food shortage crisis. Add to that, over a dozen food processing plants have mysteriously been destroyed in the past several weeks, as well as major fertilizer plants during a major fertilizer crisis. To make matters worse, Union Pacific Railroad forces a 20% reduction in shipments from the world's largest fertilizer company. And when the people demand a solution, as it turns out, Bill Gates is heavily invested in alternative fertilizers and is also a chief stockholder of the Canadian National Railway, who claims to be helping the fertilizer market grow. Perhaps Bill Gates and Monsanto will volunteer to save everyone with their new gene-edited bacteria fertilizer. And maybe it will backfire like it did in Africa, when after 15 years of trying to help, all Gates and Monsanto accomplished was increasing starvation by 31%. But that's okay, because it's Monsanto Bear to the rescue with their big pharma food factories, with brand new mRNA vaccine lettuce. And as if this wasn't bad enough, the stated goal of this new frankenfood industry is to make all food traceable, and that means coating it all in nanotech. Who controls the food supply controls the people. Who controls the energy can control whole continents. Who controls money can control the world. Reporting for InfoWars, this is Greg Reese.
Where are your hard-earned dollars going? Are they going to fund the deep state, or are they going to fund the kingdom?
And you know where you stand with a guy like Mike Lindell and MyPillow.com. And not only is he a great guy and he supports great causes, he makes the best products in the world
with
in his
warranties.
category.
Yeah, 10-year warranties on their products. My favorite product, when you go to mypillow.com and you put the promo code FLYOVER right at the top, you get up to 66% off. Right now, they're running a special on the slippers. They are my very favorite. I know I've talked about it many times, but these slippers are absolutely amazing. It is like
She
a
doesn't leave the
hug
house without them hardly.
for your feet. In fact, a lot of times I'll put them in my purse. So if I'm wearing heels or something and my feet start hurting, I'll put on my slippers. They have this great bottom on them too, that makes it really nice, and that they're not going to get ruined when you do go outside.
And you know what? Every time you spend $1, you're voting. You're voting in a big way. Let's support Mike Lindell. He's supporting you. He's supporting our country. Let's support him. And there's a little bit of urgency right now. If you go to mypillow.com, enter promo code FLYOVER, they're doing a BOGO special. Buy one, get one free.
Man,
Buy
that
one,
is
get one.
amazing.
On sheets, on pillows, on a bunch of things. So
Wow.
here's the issue. You got Mother's Day coming up.
Mother's Day
Next weekend.
Don't forget.
If your mom's out of state, whatever, you can buy something, have it sent to her. 2 sets of sheets instead of one. There's a lot of things that you can do there. But right now, take advantage of that special. Buy one, get one free on a list of items.
That is exactly right. We absolutely love My Pillow. So use promo code FLYOVER.
They are the best. You know what's not the best? The Department of Education, state by state. Got to break them down.
No kidding. So we're going to talk about the Department of Education in Maine tonight.
Now, I know a lot of maniacs. I know a bunch of maniacs. Incredible people. Work hard,
Yep.
play hard,
I don't
drink kind of hard, get at it. They are incredible people. I don't think they align with their current Department of Education based on the maniacs
No.
that I've met.
No.
This was a Libs of TikTok I put out on Twitter. I retweeted it on Twitter. But basically I said, what's happening in our schools is not the result of some fringe rogue activist teacher, like some one person
Right.
acting independently. It is a predetermined and systematized agenda that is intended to break down society and make it easier for us to be ruled over.
Okay, now this lady is actually talking to kindergartners. This is very much a concern.
The clip we're going to show you is from the Maine Department of Education. This isn't some college student or, this is a representative of the Maine Department of Education that's created curriculum for kindergartners. This isn't for first grade, second grade. This is geared for kindergartners. So the Maine Department of Education, kindergartners, how to discuss LGBT acronym. What does the acronym mean? And
Plus trans, talking about what trans is, and that a doctor actually decides the baby's gender and that they're sometimes wrong.
they treat it like it's kind of a 50-50 chance. And the doctor says something, but just because you're told this doesn't even mean that's what you are. They plant that seed in their mind. We're going to let you watch this for yourself. We're going to pull it up on screen and play this clip. And tell us in the comments, what do you guys think about this? And what is the current status in your state for the Department of Education, the teachers unions?
What are they teaching your children? What are they teaching your grandchildren?
There's a reason homeschooling has quadrupled in the last year, and I think it'll quadruple again or even more so. If there's any way humanly possible to protect your children from institutionalized education, you need to do it, and here's why.
People in this country who are LGBT plus, we're not free. Now, you might have never heard that term before, LGBT. Well, let me tell you what it means. The L stands for the word lesbian. Lesbians are women who love other women. G stands for gay, and gay men are men who love other men. B stands for bisexual, and bisexual people are people who love both men and women. And the T stands for transgender. A transgender person is someone who the doctors made a mistake about when they were born. When a baby is born, the doctors will tell the parents what gender they think that baby is. They'll say, we think your child is a female, or we think your child is a male. But some people, when they get a little bit older, realize what the doctors said was not right. They might say that the doctors told me I was a man, but I'm really a woman. Or they might say, the doctors told me I'm a woman, but I'm really a man. And so when they grow up and they can tell people that the doctors made a mistake about their gender, then they can transition to be the gender that they actually are. So transgender men are people who the doctors thought was a woman when they were born, but when they grew up, they could tell people that they're actually a man, and so they transition to be a man. And transgender women are people who, when they were born, the doctors thought they were a man, but when they grow up, they tell people, no, I'm actually a woman, and so they transition to be a woman. And so that is who transgender people are. And then there's the plus sign at the end, because there are actually a lot of other people who love in ways that society hasn't always allowed.
Wow.
Okay. When you send your kids to school, you get them up, you get them dressed, they have a good breakfast in their stomach, their clothes pressed, ready to go, whatever. They're looking their best, going to school. First day of school, they're pale and the whole bit. You're kind of thinking they're going to learn how to acclimate, socialize, that they're going to be getting the fundamentals of reading, motor skills.
Yep. You're not thinking
that
this is going
indoctrination. You're planting a seed like, oh, what if they were wrong about me? If it's kind of 50-50, if it could kind of go either way, what if they were wrong about me?
It's really a concern. That's really why we have to protect our children. When you're sending them to school, it's not like it was when we went to school, even when our kids went to school. It is much different. Being aware of that and knowing what is happening in your kids' education, your kids' school, it is so important. We're going to be talking more about this definitely in the future as more and more comes out. You stay on top of it as well. Share in the comments what's going on in your state. We would love to know more about that as well. We will be right back with an economic update with Dr. Kirk Elliott. You know what time it is. It is time for an economic update with Dr. Kirk Elliott. Yay!
Happy Monday. Oh, my word. It's so good to be with you.
It's great.
It's great to have you.
Anytime I can be talking about hopeful stuff, like about money with somebody with not one, but two PhDs, I'm in good space. I try to make a habit in life to not get advice from somebody more messed up than I am in that particular area.
That's true.
And
that's a good rule of thumb.
It's a great rule of thumb. Wherever you're taking, somebody didn't have to have it all together. They just better be in better shape than me. If I'm getting help, they better have,
if you're getting health advice,
better relationship than that. That's the area, whatever it is. And so you have dedicated a big chunk of your life to understanding trends, inflation, the central banks, government, history, politics, and how they all merge together.
And theology, where we are right now.
And theology, because there's kind of some God stuff involved in this as well. That people, there's no atheist in a stagflation. So. So we're so thankful to be able to bring you and connect you with our audience and honestly with ourselves. We got note cards. These are blank. That's
They're
because
not gonna be.
This is a show where we take in information.
Sweet.
Excited to learn.
Well, I'm glad to talk, and you can write down whatever you want. But so what you said, or just in a little bit, is I read this book by T.D. Jakes, and in it he said, never take any advice from somebody who doesn't have dirty shoes. Meaning, you have these people with fancy suits, big fancy alligator shoes, right? They haven't seen it. They haven't experienced life. And he was talking about a life coach, right, who hasn't been through the war, been through a desert, telling you how to live, right? It's like, don't listen to people like that. You always have to learn from people who have had to fall down, pick themselves up, learn how to do it, still be positive around it. But this is where we are in the markets right now, because people, there's a lot of people that are saying a lot of things on the internet, right? And It's like, you never know who to believe. And this is where God tells us to have wisdom, to have discernment, not believe everything that you have, test the prophets, right? He tells us all of these things. And really what it boils down to me is any time we make a decision, it's a leap of faith. It's a choice, right? And we're hoping that our decision is right. But for me, what I try to do is blend where our heart is and what we know about scriptures, along with logic, right? Which is what we can see. And there's math behind some of these moves. And there's some of these things that are just simply completely unsustainable, right? And so when you take that leap of faith and you know that it's blended with a faith decision, that it's blended with logic, when there's math behind it, now we can have confidence moving forward, so we don't have to operate out of fear. And this is where we've got a lot of stuff happening right now in the inflationary world. I mean, I was talking to my mom. You all know my mom.
Yep.
I was talking to her over the weekend, and she said, "Kirk, I've been watching you on Flyover with David and Stacy." time. I never miss a show.
Wow.
And you're talking about inflation. She said, I have a little story for you. And I said, okay, tell me the story so we can
shout out to mom there.
Yeah, exactly.
Shout out to mom. So she's buying eggs. And they used to be 87 cents a dozen at the store that she'd went to. They're now like $2.83 in pretty short order. So it's like 9, 18, 27, right? That's 3 times the price on eggs.
Ridiculous.
So it's like, why would the price of eggs go up so much? Well, because the price of everything that goes into producing an egg goes up. Granted, it's like just the 2 chickens get together, make the egg, right? But you've got fertilizer that actually the farmers have to use for the grain. That's gone up. The price of grain has gone up. The price of gas is going through the roof for the tractors and the transportation and everything else, and to make the cardboard boxes for the eggs. I mean, this is an inflationary spiral that is going to actually be so extreme that I don't think people actually have any kind of clue as to what's going on. Then you start to hear the word stagflation, like we had in the late 70s. And there was like, what is even stagflation? But before we get to the stagflation, I wanted to talk about something real quick, which is a few weeks ago, maybe it was a month ago now, we talked about Russia and India making the first nail in the coffin, getting rid of the petrodollar, right? So we had said, the 3 of us were talking on the show, and we said, in a world where there's no guarantees, this is the guarantee that's not the last country, it's the first. Right. There's going to be country after country after country. So last week, Poland and Russia told Poland, it's like, hey, Poland, if you want to buy natural gas, well, you're going to have to pay for it in rubles, or else we're just turning it off. It's like, boom, second nail in the coffin. Then I was doing some research this weekend. Israel is now not taking petrodollars for it's like, oh my word, it's just starting, and they're an ally, right? It's like, what? They're sticking it to the West too. I mean, the days for the dollar are numbered. Our reserve currency is over. And so therefore, we're going to have massive inflation because they're going to have to print their way out of it. The Brandon administration is going to have to go to the Fed and say, hey, we have no more capital coming in anymore because there's no built-in demand for the dollar. So we're going to have to print our way out of it to fund entitlements and welfare and women, infant, children programs and food stamps, raise the debt ceiling and everything else, right? So that's inflation. Inflation is nothing more than an increasing money supply, and prices have to respond to a devalued junk currency, monopoly money paying for everything. That's why the prices go up. They just require more of that for that. So that part of the word stagflation is the inflation part. Okay. That's the rising prices is the inflation part. What's the stag part of that word? Well, that has to do with the business cycle. So normal business words that we would use would be recession or depression. That has to do with the business cycle. That has to do with slowing down of the economy, slowing down of output, slowing down of spending. And, somebody had told me this silly joke, but it's like, well, what's the difference between a recession and a depression? Well, a recession is when your neighbor loses their job, and a depression is when you lose yours.
Oh, man, that's true.
They got really closer close. It gets to the rings to you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Exactly.
Like, oh, that's affecting me now. Stuff just got real.
Yep.
No, but that's just the realness of it. But really, a depression is no more than 2 quarters, like 6 months, 2 quarters of declining output. Then after you have 2 quarters of declining output, you have a depression, right? So we are technically 2 quarters into a declining business activity. Actually, it's a little bit more than that, but they mask it with COVID type junk, right? So,
and you've been saying this for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been calling this shot for some time.
We have been. I mean, because it's not rocket science, but it's like, so you've got declining business activity. People are spending less. When people spend less, corporate revenues come down. When corporate revenues come down, stock prices come down. This is why we're seeing stock prices come down. But we had stagflation in the late 70s. And so what was that? If you all can remember, all of the viewers out there, what it was like in the late 70s, A lot of people were unemployed. The highest income tax bracket, no stinking joke, was 90%. It's like, what is this? The USS of A? I mean, seriously, those are like communist level.
Wow.
But that was the highest income tax bracket. And people are screaming bloody murder today that the highest tax bracket's like, oh, it's like 30 something. It's like, what?
Well, and they're being hit from every direction because they have the taxes. And then, a mortgage was 18%, 19%. I talked to a neighbor yesterday. He talked about 1980, he got a mortgage for 22%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was the interest on his home. And this isn't, some crackhead, this was the going rate. This wasn't some outlier with poor credit. That was the rate.
Mm-hmm.
That was the rate, but that was the effect of a prolonged period of stagflation. So you had people not working, you had prices going through the roof because there was no taxable revenue. When the economy slowed down for a long time, well, then what? Sales tax revenues came down as people weren't working. Mm-hmm. The price of real estate had to come down, so property tax revenues came down. Municipalities, state governments, they didn't have enough revenue, right? So taxes had to go through the ceiling. And so when taxes went up, people spent even less. Do you see? It's like it's a chicken and the egg scenario,
Mm-hmm.
which came first, right?
Yep.
But it was all this amplified thing. Every solution that they tried to do to get us out of that stagnant economy had the worst effect because the more sluggish the economy got, the more the stupid government officials at the time said, we got to raise taxes. We've got to raise taxes because there's not enough revenue coming in. But if we raise taxes, at least we'll get more. But here's the thing. When people are living at the margin, like they are right now, and like they were back then, you raise taxes, and all it does is it decreases people's bottom line, so they spend less.
Right.
When people are flush with cash, let's say your wallet were just really thick and taxes go up, it's like, I don't care what taxes are. I've got so much money, I'm going to continue to spend it, right? Mm-hmm. Taxes don't matter when you have that much. But when people are living at the margin, increasing the tax rate only has the net effect of decreasing their bottom line, and they spend less. This is what's called the Laffer curve. And I think we've talked about this once before, but it's paramount to this stagflation talk that we're having, because the immediate government response is to raise taxes during times of higher prices and sluggish economy to try to generate more revenue. But when you're living at the margin, you're going to get diminishing returns from your taxes. And this is the problem. This is the problem. This is where we are with the government. So whenever Biden or whoever's calling the shots says, hey, we're going to raise taxes, they don't get it. They truly don't get it, because the way that you grow an economy out of a stagflation is what Reagan did. It's what Paul Volcker, who was chairman of the Fed, did at the time. And David, that's referring to what you just mentioned. They had to raise interest rates very high to slow down that rampant inflation that they couldn't control. Well, that did. It slowed it down because back then people didn't carry too much debt. Right. So if you raise interest rates and people don't have a lot of debt, it doesn't really impact you, except it raises the cost of borrowing. So you're not going to spend as much, and therefore prices start to come down. But here's the pickle. We're in debt up to our eyeballs right now. You raise rates now too much, it will kill the economy. But that really is one of the only policy mechanisms that they have to slow down runaway inflation. This is where we're headed. And so what you mentioned, David, is that what's going to come after the stagflation period, which is sky high interest rates, which is it's going to get worse before it gets better, is basically what we're trying to say. So this is the problem. And then what else could they do to try to get out of stagflation? Well, it's what they tried to do back then too. They printed more money. Because if there's not enough government revenues come in because the economy slowed down, you still have to pay for all those entitlements, all those stimulus programs, all that raise the debt ceiling, everything else, infrastructure, all of that. So you just have to print your way out of it. This is the horrible problem that we're in right now as a country, because we have to do all of this when we're already in debt up to our eyeballs.
Man.
And debt as a government, and debt corporately, and debt individually.
Yep.
All of the above.
So, Dr. Kirk, what do we do to protect ourselves?
Well, you do what – so you look at what the billionaires are doing, right? Elon Musk said you buy things because things go up with inflation, and that would be gold and silver. Warren Buffett said just like this morning, he said, I wouldn't buy all of the Bitcoin in the world for even $25 because
Wow.
it doesn't produce anything. Right.
Wow.
So what are those two guys saying? They're saying, and they're brilliant investors, right? They're you don't have to agree with their politics at all. Although I do love what Elon Musk is doing and bringing freedom of speech back to social media. I think that part's cool.
Yep.
I just don't like the chips he wants to put in everybody's head.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, more than one thing can be true at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater because he's a brilliant guy still. But so you invest in things, and you invest in something. What Warren Buffett was saying, you invest in something that's real. That's the gist behind what he was saying. This is where gold and silver come in. Gold and silver are poised for massive growth because of the inflationary pressures, where everything else is poised for massive contraction. That's what we do. Minimize risk, maximize our return, go into tangible assets like silver. Give our office a call or go to the link that you have on there, and we'll do a free consultation with you to get you in the right place at the right time.
That is so good. So you can go to flyovergold.com, fill out your information as you scroll down. Great information there, videos you can watch, and then you scroll down, fill out your information. Somebody from Dr. Kirk's team will give you a call, or you can call 720-605-3900. Again, 720-605-3900. Thank you so much, Dr. Kirk, for your time. We really appreciate it.
Hello, everybody. It's an honor to be with you.
You know, there's nothing more important as a patriot than to be around other patriots, keeping your fire lit. That's
Yes.
why they went to such great lengths the last 2 years to try to isolate you, keep you from going outdoors, keep you from going to the gym, closing your church down, masking your face up. They can't see your smile. It's time to come together with other patriots and make a difference.
The best place that I have found to be able to find your tribe, to hear the best of the best, is at the Reawaken America events. You're going to hear people like Clay Clark,
Scott McKay, Mel K,
Mike Lindell,
Eric Trump,
Dr. Zelenko, Dr. Northrup.
General Michael Flynn, and the gym owner from New Jersey, Ian Smith.
So text the word events to 40509. Again, the word is events to 40509.
You could name your own price for these events. Every month we're in a different city, in a different state, waking people up. There's no place better to do it than a Reawaken America event. Today on the Flyover Conservative Podcast, we have a real treat.
Oh my gosh, we're so excited.
Just pumped. Hard to sleep last night. Excited about this conversation because it's going to do a lot to bring America together and to enlighten a lot of people. He's been around in every phase of American politics over the last few decades, going back to the Reagan administration. Don't be fooled by his childish-looking appearance. He's also the host of the Dinesh D'Souza podcast, filmmaker, author, Dinesh D'Souza.
Yay!
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'm delighted to be joining you guys.
You almost have that like maybe like one of those vampire kind of things where you just kind of ageless,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
kind of keep going. At some point, that's got to catch up with you.
Debbie and I call it fooling the American public, which, like you say, you can do for a short while, but not in the long term.
Well, I love it. Keep taking your vitamins and everything. It's working. The thing I want to ask you right out of the gate today, because you grabbed this better than anyone I've ever heard speak on the topic of the left typically dominates in issues by using narrative. And a story that's, it's hard to even argue with, you know, whether it's pro-life or the economy, many issues. And the right typically comes at it with facts and spreadsheets and kind of a punch in the mouth. And they tend to win the narrative argument, which somewhere in the process of your, you know, political analysis, you've shifted in a way of merging the two in a really beautiful way. But talk about historically what you've noticed on that, on narrative versus fact.
Well, the left constructs a story about America, and their politics sort of flow out of that. So their story might be something like this. America was started by a bunch of evil slave owners. They spent decades, if not centuries, exploiting other people. Then came a series of liberationist movements against this kind of entrenched, oppressive upper class. That was the Civil War, the Civil Rights Movement, and now things like the gay rights movement, the trans movement. So you can see here that they've got a narrative. The narrative may be bogus, but nevertheless, it is a story of American history. and it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So for the left, the beginning is bad, and the glorious days are in the future. That's why they call themselves progressives. They are making progress, but what
good.
progress in what direction? Well, progress away from the American founding. So you can't beat a narrative just by poking holes in it with facts. You need a counter narrative. And I discovered this not just in my books, which do attempt to do that, but even more so in films, because a film doesn't work if it's not a narrative. A film is a journey, it's a story. A book can work a little bit more like a legal brief, but a film needs to be, has to have, even if it's nonfiction, even if it's a documentary, it has to have some of the same ingredients of fiction, which is to say interesting characters, suspense, what's going to come next, a sense of anticipation, and then ideally some kind of consummation or some kind of bringing it all together at the end. And I make sure to do that in all my films.
So true, and it moves you emotionally. It uses more of your senses, so it does tend to move you more emotionally. It seems. And
they've used that to push bad ideas, but it's hard to argue with when you have an outlier on, say, an argument for pro-life. You know, it's like, oh well, I don't even want to argue with you about that, or on racism, or you know, some of these things. Where it's really magnified is the conversations people have on college campuses, whether it's a prove me wrong tent set up on a college campus, or yourself, or Ben Shapiro. When those are filmed, you see the narrative coming from the students in the way they've gotten, and it's compelling. But then, you know, it's countered, you know, in a way that sometimes is effective, sometimes is abrasive. I find that narratives, you might get compliance out of just guilt. Like, oh, I don't really agree with that, but I really hate to argue with this person's point. Facts sometimes, you know, can be abrasive and just create an argument, you know, whether it's you know, police shootings or some of these things. You counter back with facts and it just kind of escalates. You have a way, whether you're speaking on a college campus or every time that you're communicating a point, though, not even just in the film, when you communicate, it's always a fact wrapped in a narrative, kind of a little honey to help that pill go down. And people seem to get it. Even the most angry college students tend to kind of like at least walk away like, oh, that makes sense, because you merge them in a way that no one else does.
I think what happens is when somebody has a narrative, and you sometimes need to begin by throwing that narrative into question, because they're not likely to swap the lens out of the camera and pick up a new narrative unless they feel that something is really wrong with the one they've already got. I mean, think of, for example, why someone might convert to Christianity. They've got a narrative, and that is that I'm in charge of my life, I want to be the best me. And then they do all this and they discover they arrive at some miserable place where being themselves didn't really work. And then they go, well, you know what? Maybe I need to think of it completely differently. And then the possibility of another way to look at it, let's just say a narrative in which you are not central, in which God loves you, but God comes to the center, is able to displace the old narrative. So in politics, it's very much the same thing, that you have a student, he's got some idea about the world. Very often it's not anchored in experience. So a student will think, all our institutions are racially biased. And you know, the student has never taken a police sergeant's exam, or he's never taken the civil service exam. He has no idea what he means when he says such nonsensical things. You've got to start by deflating that narrative a little bit. And then you, just at the point where he's beginning to lose his confidence, you present the possibility of a rival narrative. Now, it's very rare that the student goes, you know what, you're right, I convert. Rather, the student's going to still fight back, but they're going to go home and think, you know what, I'm a little uncomfortable with how that went. I didn't really feel like I vindicated my... So then they begin the slow process of re-examination. This is really how a change of heart takes place.
That is huge.
And with your narratives you've had in the past, you've wrapped in incredible movies. I'd like to pull up kind of a list of some of them because, you know, Trump Card, we were so excited the day this came out. We did a search at our you know, we posted this the day that came out. We were so excited counting the days till this came out. Trailers are fantastic. You create a product that's as good as anything out there. But, you know, going back through these, you know, Infidel and Death of a Nation and Hillary's America, and, you know, it's not just enraging people to engage people. You actually, you know, create really compelling, you know, factual based, you know, narratives mixed in. Of the work you've done in the past from Trump Card on through, what do you feel has been the most effective at accomplishing that? Of a new narrative laced with facts all blurred together?
Well, I'm looking at the screen in front of me, and my Obama movie was the first one I did, and that was a runaway success. And I think the reason that worked is because people didn't really understand where Obama was coming from, even though he was about to run for his second term. I mean, this movie came out in 2012, so it was after Obama was already in office. But what I did was I went to Hawaii and Indonesia and Kenya. I kind of followed the Obama trail, and I presented the idea that it wasn't so much that Obama was born abroad, but that he had somehow assimilated a foreign ideology, the kind of dreams from his father that he talks about in his own memoir. And I was able to demonstrate that, and also demonstrate a lot of the contradictions and hypocrisy in Obama, which of course made him very angry. He's a pretty vindictive, narcissistic type. And so I paid a little bit of a price for that later. That's one of my most memorable movies. My movie called America, Imagine a World Without Her. I think if someone wants to know what the case for and against America is, what is American exceptionalism and what is a kind of rational understanding of it, that's about as good a movie to do that. And of course, I'm very excited about the new movie, which takes on the biggest, most ambitious topic of all, 2,000 Mules.
So true. In fact, let's do this. Let's go ahead and watch the trailer of that. And then when we come back, let's talk about the making of that and then the details so people can find out how they can watch it as well. We'll be right back.
We have put together, I think, the most extensive and inclusive voter fraud organization in the history of American politics. Let me say it again.
The 2020 election was the most secure
Election in American history.
Let me begin by asking a very simple question. Do we know the truth about what really happened in the 2020 election?
I think millions of Americans know something went wrong, and they have little pieces, and no one's really put it together.
I'm agnostic on this question, and I am awaiting more information.
If I believed the president were a Nazi, I might steal an election.
Bold accusations require bold evidence, and they haven't seen it.
We have been working on something big.
Show me the money.
Can we meet? I've been working with Greg Phillips. He has a deep background in election intelligence.
True the Vote has the largest store of election intelligence for the 2020 elections in the world. No one has more data than we do. We identified in Atlanta 242 mules that went to an average of 24 drop boxes. But Philadelphia alone, we've identified more than 1,100 mules.
What is a mule?
Person picking up ballots and running them to the drop boxes.
This is not grandma out walking her dog. Bad backgrounds, bad reputations. They are interested in one thing, that's money.
And in no shape, in no way, in no time is that legal.
This is organized crime.
Do you have video evidence?
4 million minutes of surveillance video around the country.
What you're about to see is disturbing.
So this is 1 o'clock in the morning.
Don't we all vote at 1 o'clock in the morning?
On one night, this person, this mule, went across 6 counties to 27 different drop boxes.
I call it the Mexican mafia, seriously, because they work like that.
This is jaw-dropping.
What you showed is frightening.
It's just sickening to me.
Now we come to the most important question of all. Was the magnitude of vote trafficking enough to tip the balance in the 2020 presidential election?
It's not a leap to say this would have made a difference.
They have ruined Election Day in the United States of America. That's provable. And that's enough for me to fight the left with every fiber in my body.
Without free and fair elections, we are not a democracy. We are a criminal cartel masquerading as a democracy.
2,000 Mules. In select theaters, May 2nd and 4th. Virtual premiere, May 7th. Stream, May 8th at Salem Now or Locals.
Great trailer.
That is such a great
trailer. From a filmmaking standpoint, I always like this shot you have in all of them of kind of you walking in a street and they kind of film you and you look kind of perplexed and you're kind of chewing on an issue. It's a great way to kind of get inside your mind and you begin looking at these issues like from the other side of your eyes out. I see that in all of your films. What's interesting is This is a hot topic. This
It is.
controversial. And you're one of the last people still standing talking about this, holding out hope for examination of truth in the 2020 election.
Yeah, the election has been surrounded by a lot of dogmatic assertion that cannot be substantiated. And by the way, this is coming from the left as much as from the right. So let's look at the left. This is the most secure election in history. To which I reply, how do you know? How do you know it's the most secure? Well, where's your proof of election fraud? Well, let's say I have none. Does it make it the most secure election in history? How do I know it's more secure than 2016 or 2012 or 2008 or 2004? Have you done a comparison of the amount of fraud in each of those elections to show me that this one had the least? No one's even attempted this. So when I see all these election officials, stating this stuff, I go, you guys are making irrational statements with nothing to back them up. And then the media treats it like the gospel truth, calls anyone who questions it a big lie, and proceeds to censor you. So the sheer obtuse irrationality of it is really maddening. And that's why I finally said, look, even on the right, people suspect fraud, but they can't put their finger on it. And so once I connected with this organization called True the Vote, an election kind of intelligence organization, and they had some really powerful evidence, I said to myself, look, this is the way to go. This will make a really interesting movie. This is a way to take all this dogmatism and show what really happened in the 2020 election.
I love it. So people go to 2000mules.com. You have two actually that are coming out. Today is one, May the 2nd, a premiere week, and then Wednesday, May the 4th at select theaters. But they still need to purchase their tickets by coming to 2000mules.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can't get we've rented out these theaters, so you can't get tickets at the theater. You got to buy them off the website. Quite in all honesty, almost all these theaters are sold out, I'm sorry to say, but don't freak out, because on Saturday, May 7th, there's an in-home virtual premiere. People all around the country, you buy a ticket on the website, you get an access code, you log in, you click, you can watch the movie. There's a live Q&A to follow. And all of this is for the price of a movie ticket. So I would recommend checking out the virtual premiere. There's a tab on the website. You can't miss it. And it's 2000mules.com. It's the number 2000mules.com.
2000mules.com. If you're listening on Apple or Podbean or one of the audio places, all the links will be down below. Links to the trailer, links to Dinesh's website, even links to Dinesh's Twitter account, who almost single-handedly kept Twitter interesting and relevant after Trump's absence till now. I've joked that Twitter has been a lot like a bunch of young single guys going to a bar that doesn't allow women. When they got rid of, all conservative thought, President Trump and stuff included. But you have kept it relevant during this time and made it still interesting. So that's at Dinesh D. Souza on Twitter. Great follow, great place to be.
Dinesh, let me ask you a question. Obviously, 2016, the Obama and everything that entailed for you, the consequences of making that. Do you have any concern? Because this is obviously extremely controversial. This is something that they are not wanting the information to get out there. Are you concerned for yourself or your family during this time?
Not really. I mean, I am concerned. I'm a little careful. I also am kind of watching it in all spheres of life. I say this because what had happened in 2012 was I had given money over the campaign finance limit to a college friend of mine. I kind of got enthusiastic about her campaign. I tried to help her out. But little did I know I was putting a big target on my back, because when you annoy Obama, the most powerful man in the world, the empire is going to strike back. I should have known that. I should have expected it. This time I do expect it. I think there's a certain safety in being a truth teller right on the front line, because, hey, if something happens to me tomorrow, my movie is just coming out. I don't think it's too hard for people to make the connection of not only what happened, but who's behind it.
That is very true.
Absolutely. In watching this movie, do you think that this is an opportunity to bring people together? I mentioned earlier, the difference between narratives and facts, and when you merge them together, it can actually enlighten people with a new idea. For change to take place, it has to be their idea, which kind of comes from somebody planting a seed and moving forward. But do you think this is an opportunity that people could use whatever relational equity they have with a nephew, with a brother-in-law, with somebody saying, hey, let's sit down and watch this together and see where we come to? Do you see as this an opportunity to create bridges, to create connections in something that's typically only created divides?
I think it can be, and let me tell you why. we in this movie, we have 5 of the leading Salem media hosts. We have Dennis Prager, Larry Elder, Charlie Kirk, Sebastian Gorka, Eric Metaxas. Now, out of those, Eric Metaxas and Gorka were pretty convinced at the outset that the election was stolen. But Larry Elder, no. Charlie Kirk, no. And Dennis Prager, not at all. In fact, Dennis Prager was a little reluctant to even attend. He's like, listen, I'm coming, but I'm an agnostic. That's his phrase.
Yeah.
So one thing I did in the movies, I said, okay, you know what I'm going to do? Instead of having these guys be pundits who kind of come in and see the movie and then comment on it, I'm going to start talking to them before we see the evidence. We're just going to talk. We're going to lay out all our different positions. What is it that we know now? All right. Now let's look at the evidence of the movie. But as you're looking at it, we're going to be filming you, getting your spontaneous reaction, getting the questions that inevitably rise. What's going on? Why is that guy wearing gloves? Is it because of COVID? So the discussion, the kind of questions that the audience has watching the movie are in the movie. And so it allows you to process this information in which the facts can then be put in some sort of context. So this is not a highly polemical film that's trying to drive a point home. There's no shouting in the movie. It's measured, it's thoughtful. It's kind of like the old 60 Minutes, and the audience, in a sense, becomes the eyewitness and the jury.
That's so good. This is a topic that's highly censored as well. You know, we had a YouTube channel. One of our strikes came from talking about the election and everything that happened in 2020. And they came back with, they said that we had to say, anytime you talked about the election, you had to say it was the most secure election of all time on YouTube if you were going to be talking about that, or you were going to get a strike.
In quotes.
Yeah.
If we reference it, we have to also say, you know, it was also the safest and most secure election in U.S. history, which I think is a bombastic statement by itself. That's like saying,
I mean, it's a flat out lie. And I honestly submit that by the time this movie has made its rounds, the left will stop saying that. Because the reason is if they say that with a straight face, people will start laughing. Because once you've seen video after video of these mules jumping out of cars in the middle of the night, stuffing ballots one after the other into drop boxes, something quite honestly, this is footage no one's ever seen before. And when you look at it, you can see that you are witnessing a criminal circuit, an organized criminal circuit in the key states that decided the election. So my prediction is the left will try to move to sort of more clever and nuanced arguments. Yeah, Dinesh, but these were legal votes that were merely cast in an illegal way. And we'll get all that kind of stuff. But the old nonsense about this being the most secure election in history is going to go out the window.
Man, that is great to hear. And that's our job. You know, obviously you're being censored. It's being squashed as much as they can possibly do it so this information doesn't get out there. That's what our job is as patriots, to share this information, to tell everyone. Go to 2000mules.com. You can watch it there. You can even go to the theaters if it's at all possible to get the tickets for tonight or the 4th. And Dinesh, we are so thankful for what you're doing to help get this information out there and making more people aware.
I really appreciate it. It's you know, without free elections and fair elections, we're really a criminal cartel masquerading as a democracy.
Yes.
And nothing less than that is what is at stake here.
That is exactly right.
Well, Flyover family, do your work. Put your thumbs to work. Share this message directly as a text message to friends and family. Don't depend on the social media algorithms to work, forever in your favor, because they may not. Send this directly to the people that you care about. Each of us have a pocket of influence, and it's getting this message directly to people that you least want to have a more intelligent and a more informed conversation. Dinesh, I thank you so much for your work and all that you do to bring truth to a kind of a confusing time in our country's history.
Thank you very much. It really means a lot, guys. Thanks so much.
Are you having a hard time sleeping at night, thinking, what are you going to do about your finances?
If you went back to 1920 and you had a $20 bill and you had 1 ounce of gold, you could go into a men's clothing store and you could buy an entire suit, the jacket, shoes, pants, belt, everything. Today, what would that $20 bill buy you? You couldn't buy a handkerchief for the $20 bill, but that 1 ounce of gold would still buy you, even today, it would buy you an entire men's suit, shoes, belt, pants, jacket, everything. That's the difference. But today, that change is happening faster than ever.
And we know a guy by the name of Dr. Kirk Elliott that we've known for over 25 years. He has 2 PhDs.
This is who we're actually using. This is who our friends and family are using. And he's a guy we trust completely. And in today's era, you need somebody you trust. So go to flyovergold.com and learn how to protect yourself against an inflating dollar. Definitely do reach out to Kirk Elliott, PhD, today. That's a number. It's a website you're going to want to have. It's at the bottom of your screen there, and you can give him a phone call or go to flyovergold.com. The phone number 720-605-3900. Also, 2000mules.com. Go to that website. That's one that you can have your nephew, your grandma, your brother-in-law, somebody, take in that information with them and have a better conversation than you've been having. See what's going on in our country.
That's exactly right. We bless you. We bless you to realize you were born for such a time as this. We bless you to realize you are an important piece of the puzzle, and we bless you to wake up, speak up, and show up.
Have a great weekend, y'all.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Flyover Conservatives podcast with David and Stacey Whited. Please subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave us